Because of the level of threats that we have going on our planet at this time, it is very common to be experiencing depression. In this video, we're going to talk about what depression is from a nervous system perspective, as well as how to create the conditions to release depression and specific exercises that you can do when you're feeling depressed. What's up, everybody? My name is Lizzy. I'm the creator of Empower Body, Mind, Soul, Ritual Fitness and Somatic Self-Care for Paradigm Shifting Women. Let's dive into what depression is. From a nervous system perspective, depression is an expression of dorsal vagal shutdown. When we experience threat to the degree that we can't fight it, we can't run away from it, we're gonna start to shut down all of that cortisol and sympathetic activation. We're gonna start to shut it down into a freeze mode. We develop these tendencies in childhood. If it's not safe to speak up, to express ourselves, we may tamp down our expression, and that can show up as a disassociation or a numbness or a fog. This dorsal vagal shutdown is showing up in our experience to try to keep us safe. If we cannot run or fight a tiger, we are going to play dead, which is what this freeze response, this dorsal vagal shutdown is. And when we have this going on long term, we call it depression. It feels heavy. Its impulse is to basically like play dead, curl in a ball, get small, hide under the covers, to isolate and to withdraw and to go inward. We sort of tend to disconnect from the external world, and it's more of an implosion. Whereas our fight or flight is an explosion, this is more of an implosion. The times that I have experienced this, it has felt extremely hard to motivate to get out of bed, to go do things, and it can come with thoughts that nothing matters, why try, it's hopeless. If you haven't done the Map Your Nervous System workshop inside the online studio, I really recommend it because it's so important that we understand these states and how they sound and how they feel for us and what specific things tend to trigger that experience. When we understand this about ourselves, we can be a lot more proactive about effectively supporting ourselves in those experiences and even like before we even get to those experiences. When the threats are beyond our capacity to actually manage, it's normal for us to slip down into dorsal vagal. And when we look out at the world and everything that we have going on, it feels too big for us to even touch. So many of us are experiencing this dorsal vagal shutdown, this freeze, and this depression right now on the planet. When we understand that this is our nervous system trying to keep us safe, we can go in and we can create safety for ourselves. As I've said in the previous videos, creating safety for ourselves is so much about our connection with each other, with the natural world, with something bigger than us. And so we want to feed ourselves some of that connection. And we want to release any shame or judgment that we may have around what we're experiencing. We don't feel safe when we're in shame, when we are being shamed. So in order to create safety for ourselves, connection and compassion, releasing that shame, are critical. So when we experience grief, when we experience sadness, when we experience heaviness and depression, we want to really create this condition to hold ourselves in it. Mostly, that's what we need. We need attunement and holding, empathy, really just feeling that feeling. When someone in our space does that with us, like feels our pain, there's such a relief there. It's like these feelings want to be validated and felt more than anything else. And that is one of the big keys to helping them unlock and to release. So that's the first step. Loving ourselves, letting ourselves know that it's okay that we're feeling this way, and just simply holding ourselves in that feeling, being willing to go towards it instead of away from it. I will notice in myself, I'll be feeling sad, I'll be feeling depressed, and I'm kind of hovering above, really going down into feeling the depths of that emotion, and I'm kind of trying to do the tools that keep me afloat. I will end up feeling just a general malaise in a few days of that in a row, and it'll start to become hard to bear. And I'm like, I gotta do something about this. And so I am training myself to take a step back and to let myself cry, to let myself feel the vulnerability that is at the core of this experience and this hopelessness that I'm feeling. And so this could look like walking out into the woods and letting myself cry, or into the sun in the wintertime, and making a safe space for myself to cry. For me, connection with earth and connection with spirit is crucial, is one of the most essential components to being able to really access and to release my grief, which turns into depression. And so this may sound like a prayer that says, Spirit, please help me. I'm struggling right now. Something really vulnerable and humble, and like a call out for help. Like, I'm struggling right now. And there's something that happens when we don't feel like we have to hold it ourselves, or we don't feel like we have to keep ourselves afloat. We just let ourselves go there. That prayer, and also sometimes listening to the right piece of music, can help me just break through that avoidance and to let myself go down and feel it. I avoid it like we all do because nobody wants to go down there. We've maybe been down there, and maybe we've been down there and stuck down there. We don't want to get stuck down there. So we tend to hover above those lower octaves, but we're training ourselves to remember to go in and down into those feelings, to let ourselves feel it. Those cries are so deeply cleansing and releases that cortisol and that pent-up sympathetic activation from not being able to fight or flight, but still having that charge that we are tamped down, and now we're kind of in a frozen opioid state. Okay, so we can go down into those feelings, let ourselves feel, let ourselves cry, let ourselves maybe moan or make some noises. We may curl up into a ball and let ourselves get small. We may grab a blanket and like hide out into our bed, go into, like, there's a wisdom there. Our body is going into this hide and protect and freeze mode as a protective mechanism. We're gonna pendulate into that, and then we'll pendulate ourselves open. There's an implosion that happens with that grief, that heaviness, that depression. So we're gonna let ourselves feel that, and then we're gonna pendulate open. This can literally happen with the eyes and with the awareness. We can either be focused on something so small, like our fingernail, or we can spiral open and we can be aware of the entire cosmos holding this planet, the entire sky. Right? So we want to shift our perspective into our belonging, into our interconnectedness, and into the expansiveness, into the vastness. And we may take a breath there, inhale, and then maybe we pendulate back. A cat-cow pose that's kind of accentuated, contracting into the heavy, and then expand open with a big deep breath. Filling up the lungs. Imagining if you were down at the bottom of a lake in the mud, what would you do to bring yourself up to that light? You become buoyant the more air that you tuck in. And that inhale is an activating force. We're bringing energy into the system. So when we are down in the mud, that inhale is going to lift us up. our posture makes a difference, right? So we'll pendulate, expanding, open, and contracting, and then we may end in a powerful posture, claiming our dignity, claiming our power. We may expand, open the arms, right? Taking up space, expanding our energy, opening our field. So we want to let ourselves go back and forth between going into that contraction, that shutdown, that freeze mode, like rock mode, and then opening up into like an eagle soaring mode, getting big, feeling yourself like a light beam, expanding your awareness, even zooming fully out to the sky or the cosmos, to the big picture, and then back in, and then finally end in this kind of power pose and see how it feels. Most of the time, especially with grief, we're gonna notice we may, process a little bit during that session. We might feel a little boost, and then we may notice we have a trigger, something we dip back down, right? Grief is like that. It's a bit of a dragon ride, and we are learning how to be graceful when life asks us to dip down and to feel those deeper layers, and graceful when we rise up into the light and we're able to see the big picture and access a sense of hopefulness. We cannot selectively numb our experience. So when we numb down and haze out around our sadness and our grief, we also numb out our joy and our inspiration. So it's critical that we make the space to feel it all, to move it through our body. And this is what is going to enable us to live powerfully and live openly in our lives and be able to access our inner creative vision and our joy, which is something that is our birthright. It's so essential to who we are, and especially who we are being called to be at this time. Not being riddled with anxiety, not being in bed scared and riddled with depression and unable to get up and do something. No, able to go there and to feel that and to move it through so that we can embody our power to create change in our lives. A lot of times, depression is advising us something isn't right in our life. Needs are not being met. When we can really welcome the wisdom of depression, of grief, we can start to learn from it, and we can start to ask ourselves, what am I needing here? How is this directing me to more fulfillment, more satisfaction, more health, more well-being? So welcoming that wisdom when it comes and being willing to ride that wave of this freeze mode without getting stuck there. And the more that we do that, the more that we ride that wave, each time we develop a little bit more self-trust. It's safe to be down here. It's safe to feel this, right? Like this low is leading to this high. This is just one dance, one spiral wave, one expansion and contraction. Like this is the pulse of aliveness, of being alive, and we can learn to embrace it, to flow with it. I hope this helps. Let me know if you try this practice, if it's working, if it's supporting you at all, if you're letting yourself go down and feel your grief and what your experience with that has been. And stay tuned, because we're going to be talking a little bit more specifically about trauma and how to release trauma through your body in the next video.